What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm Edward Lewis, publisher, BruinsSportsport.com. This is Joey Kaufman, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register, and we're here today at UCLA where the Bruins just wrapped up another successful signing day. Joey, a lot of big wins on this day. They actually started out 3 for 3, and it even started out on Tuesday night with a Brandon Burton commitment. That was a big win. Then they get the Audio Matosho commitment this morning, the Brandon Stevens commitment this morning, and they wrap it all up with the Mike Warriors commitment. Explain to me some of the wins and how important they were to UCLA's success today.
I think last night, I think Brandon Burton was a big pickup from Gardena Serra. That's a place where USC's had a lot of success recruiting since 2010. As of last night, they had reeled in 11 guys, and now UCLA's been able to get a guy from Serra, the third Serra guy in the last since 2014. So in the last 3 classes, they're having some success there. So that's a win, I think.
Mike Warriors, obviously huge win, 5-star prospect, number 9 player, I believe, in our Rivals.com rankings. Going to be an instant impact player, picking UCLA over Alabama and Ole Miss and really anybody else, BYU. So that was a huge win. Going in, Boss Tagaloa as well, we can't forget to mention him. Going into the flip side of that.
And I don't think Theo Howard wasn't a part of the whole signing day thing, but I mean, since Rivals and Scout have been doing the recruiting rankings since 2002, he's the highest ranked UCLA receiver that they've ever signed. So, I mean, that's not going to exactly garner the national signing day stuff because he's an early enrollee, but that's pretty important, I think.
So several big wins. On the flip side, you have the losses, which actually weren't too bad this year. Aaron Hansford was the big one. He was down to UCLA and Texas A&M, and quite frankly, if Noel Mazzoni had stayed, I was hearing that Aaron Hansford was probably coming to UCLA. So that was kind of a tough loss because not only do people consider him, a pretty good wide receiver, but a lot of people had him as one of the better linebackers in the country. So pretty talented athlete that went to Texas A&M over UCLA. And the other one was Devin Asiasi. You don't necessarily cover a whole lot of recruiting, but you understand that Devin Asiasi was a big recruit for this team.
Well, they're trying to become more of a pro-style team. They want fullbacks, they want tight ends, and he's a guy who's 265 pounds, and he's with not a lot of tight ends in the roster. He's a guy you get in fall camp, and that's a guy who maybe is able to start or play a lot. So that's in terms of a guy who's ready now. He was one of them.
Yeah, and also he's 260, 270 pounds right now, and he's 18. So in 2 years, you project him maybe 300 pounds, and maybe becomes a pretty dynamite defensive end as well. So that was a tough loss, but overall it was a pretty successful day for UCLA. They won more than they lost, and Jim Moore kind of looked a little tired. I think you would say it was an emotional day, I guess you could say. What were some of your takeaways from our 20 minutes with him this evening?
He looked like a guy who's been through a lot of air travel in the last few days. They talked about, you'll talk about it later, but they used a private plane to get around, and they've been a couple times where they've been in 3 or 4 different places in one day. So it's been quite a whirlwind for him. He talked about size a lot, and they added, I think, 5 or 6 defensive linemen. They added 3 linebackers, and I remember talking to you after the Foster Farms Bowl. They said they wanted to add size, and at the time they had 2 defensive linemen. So they clearly made that a priority to kind of add size there.
Yeah, with the surprise JUCO D lineman was surprised us all, I think, and that kind of emphasized it. They're still not done yet. There's Maxis Tupai, the Utah defensive end that's considering visiting UCLA this weekend. So they might end up with 6 or 7 defensive linemen when all this is said and done. My takeaway from Jim was the private jet situation. Brandon Stevens decommits from Stanford like literally a week and a half ago, and Jim basically says if we don't have a private jet, we don't get him. And if you watch his film, he's very comparable to Paul Perkins, and he's very comparable to guys that Kennedy Polamalu had success with, guys that are good contact balance, guys that have good vision, very Paul Perkins-esque guys. So this whole private jet thing that Jim Moore has really finagled, being able to be this premier head coach and getting what he wants, it's actually really helped UCLA and propelled him to kind of another top 10 class this year. So overall takeaways from signing day. Now, all that being said, winners, losers, Jim Moore's press conference, what's kind of the narrative you take from UCLA today?
Probably I think it's a very good day in terms of the optics, how it's perceived. I think after the Mike Juarez commit, this was a class that became 7th on Scout. Right now it's, I think, 10th on Rivals, and for another year in a row, Jim Moore's got a top 10 class here, and I think nationally that's become the storyline. This is a program that's able to reel in top 10, top 15 classes every February, and it's a place that a lot of people want to go. I think it keeps that momentum alive. If they missed on Mike and some of those other guys, you wonder if the class would be as high, and whether that narrative would really kind of be the same, the perception.
Can't wrap up this this cover 2 recap without mentioning Scott White. The job he did not only throughout the whole class and not only today. I mean, it was just a tremendous thing for his first year as a linebackers coach. I mean, to land Mike Juarez was in a legit competition with Alabama and Ole Miss, and you land him. And when I asked Mike, why did you pick UCLA, the first reason out of his mouth was not, the academics, UCLA, the prestige. It was Scott White. So, he also helped land Lokeni To'aloa, Chris Barnes, Breland Brandt. I mean, all these guys, Darian Owens got his commitment. So all these guys, Scott White has helped land. I really genuinely think he should be the Pac-12 Recruiter of the Year, and that's saying something because I don't think UCLA's had that for a long time.
He's a good recruiter. Guys like him. I remember doing a story on Aaron Wallace last December. He wanted to be a grad transfer and transfer from UCLA. He stayed because of Scott White, ended up being the leading sack leader. So he's a guy that people like playing for him.
So very big pickup and on a day with a lot of good pickups. So that'll wrap up our coverage of UCLA's 2016 signing day. You can follow Joey's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Joey R. Kaufman. You can follow me on Twitter at Edward_Lewis. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.